So welcome everyone. My name is Dave Gerhart, and I'm so excited to be here for episode 2. And I'm going to be talking about today, we're going to recap on some of the things we talked about last week, and then we're going to start talking about some exercises. So we're going to do a lot of playing today. So grab some sticks, whatever sticks you have, and we don't necessarily need a pad. A pad is a good surface, obviously, but at this point, we're not doing any bouncing. The only time you're going to need a practice pad is when we start doing bouncing. So at this point, beginning of the year, you've got a couple weeks before you really need a pad. Remember, a mouse pad works really well. So mouse pads are really inexpensive, and you can put them on a book and then put them on the music stand. And the reason I say put them on a book is so that you don't get the vibration of the stand, because that could be pretty obnoxious. So put them on a book and then put them on the stand, and then you can have a surface for students to play on. All right, so we've got our sticks. I'm gonna take a little sip of my tea. So let's recap. And don't forget, all this is available in episode 1, so you can go back and review that. It's on YouTube. I'm gonna pull my sleeves up a little so you can see my wrists. So remember, the first thing you do is your arms go down at your side. And when your arms are down at your side, I take my thumb and put it on the seam of my pants, okay, or sweatpants. And as I come up, remember, I'm not standing in front of the pad. I'm standing back from the pad because I want my sticks to come up in the correct height. I don't want the drum to influence my height. And remember, kids are going to just come up to the drum, but you really, from the beginning, make sure that you're really thinking about teaching them, come up, set their position. Once they've got it, adjust, okay? And every time they're going to have to adjust, okay? So sticks down at your side. Elbows are the same distance from your body as if you're walking down the street. You pivot up from your elbows, not from your arms. It's not Frankenstein, okay? Up from your elbows. Your elbows are still at the same spot. They're not back, because once you go back, you get tension here, and they're not forward, because then you get tension here. You're just pivoting from your elbows, rotating from there, okay? So I come up to the pad, and I've got my position. And what we're going to do is just do a basic warm-up by doing some full strokes, and we won't go into the handouts quite yet. So what we're going to do is we've got our V position, okay? We've got if we're marked our sticks, we're making sure that our fulcrum is on the stick, and you can review all that in the previous lesson. I'm not going to go over all that today, okay? And what we're going to do is just bring our sticks up. So our sticks, when they come onto the pad, are in a V, about a 60-degree angle-ish, right? Remember, it's also dependent on your body type. And one thing you don't want is you don't want your wrist to come in like this, and you also don't want your elbows to come up like that. So when your arms are down at their side and you're come up, there's your natural position, okay? Kids like to do this a lot, okay? So make sure you're like this, okay? The other thing is your hand is a little bit sloping away from the pad. It is not perfectly flat, and it's also not thumbs up, okay? It is just as if you're bringing your hands up and you've got that natural position. So the first couple of weeks, it's really just reinforcing this, going over and over, making sure that they've got this good position. All right, so you all have that good position. So what we're going to do is bring our sticks up about 8 to 10 inches above the pad, and we're going to just alternate. So just simple alternating right, left, and we'll take it nice and slow. Ready, go. Right, left, right, left, right. Now, when you're doing this, you need to be looking at a bunch of things. Number one, is your grip good? Is your thumb still on the stick? It's not below the stick, it's on the stick, okay? And I'm rotating from my wrists. I'm not Flintstone drumming. A lot of kids aren't going to get that reference, but we all know, hopefully. So it's all 99.99999% wrist, okay? If they're hitting rim shots, like you heard me do it a couple times like that, that means their pad's too high or their drum is too high. So adjust it. You'll also notice, make sure your left hand is good. If you're right-handed, your left hand is going to have some problems. So just nice and slow. And this is going to speed up a lot in a school. So you can use a metronome, obviously. I like to use music as well. You can play a piece of music, especially now, most music is really quantized to metronomes. So figure out, there's a playlist that you can do that have different tempos, just nice and slow, okay? And you're making sure that they're checking all those different things, that their grip is in a good spot, that their fingers are closed, they're not pushed in, they're not making a white thumb, right? So they're grabbing too tight. Just nice and slow. All right, and let's do some sticks together now. So I call this mirrored. And what this really does is it just makes sure that the sticks are moving the same speed and the same height, okay? So when we're alternating, I'm making sure that the sticks end up in the same spot. I'm not going back to it, I'm bringing it straight up so that the tips match. And you can define where the tips are. So if you want to do some soft playing, maybe you want the sticks 3 to 4 inches above the pad. If you want super soft, 1 inch above the pad. If you want a little bit louder, up here. So in the beginning, I generally do like a mezzo forte or forte volume, and you can define those by saying, we're going to do a forte at 9 inches above the pad, okay? And then we're going to do a mezzo forte at 7 inches. Whatever that is, it doesn't really matter. Everyone has their own definition of what the height is, okay? But it's just making sure that you're consistent and you're always coming back up, okay? Remember, the pad is like a stove. You're not going down, up. You're going, oh, it's hot, and coming back up. So you're rebounding up from that. So these are all things to be looking at. The other things to look at is shoulders. Are the kids up like this? Obviously, that's a lot of tension. So tell them to relax their shoulders. And I will generally, with the stick, I will generally say, put your shoulders down, put your shoulders down. The other thing is, this pad is a little dry for me because I keep hitting rooms. Are the elbows in? Are they out? We don't want chicken drumming. We also don't want super stiff drumming. We want it that same space as if you're walking down the street. That same feel. Okay? Awesome. And now let's go back to the mirrored, because that's what today's exercise is really going to be about. So just doing nice and slow, making sure you're coming back to the same spot. A lot of times in this case, my kids do this all the time. Let's do mirrored exercises, and they bring their right hand up because they're dominant right-handed, and they take a long time to bring the left hand up. So just making sure that both hands are coming up and down at the same rate. All right. Remember, in the chat box, if you have a question, type in your question and make sure that you're in question mode. That will mark it as a question, and then I'll be able to know to look at that as we go on. Okay, now let's do some just left hand alone. So keep that other stick up, and this is what we're going to talk about today. All right, so let me pull up the exercise we're going to talk about and check the questions. Yes, webinar on how to roast coffee would be awesome. We need to get a coffee sponsor. All right, so we're going to start with this mirrored exercises. And if this is not big enough, you can, full screen your side and monitor. So we're going to talk about full strokes. Last week we talked about a full stroke is a stroke that starts and ends in the same spot. A couple questions. What do you suggest about traditional grip? For beginning students, I suggest not doing traditional grip. Traditional grip is very specific to the marching activity. And what we really want to do is get the students acquainted to match grip, because most of the instruments we play require match grip: snare drum, timpani, marimba, vibraphone. Once they get into the marching activity and their hands are together, then they start to learn the traditional grip. So in the beginning, very, very early students, I always start them off on match grip. Do you have a playlist of songs you like to use during these warm-ups? There is a great playlist that I will link to. I don't have the link right now, but there's a playlist that has no drumming on it. It's just the music, and a lot of schools are using it for drum set practice. And it's on Spotify. I think if you just look up drum list playlist, and it's starts off, I think, at like 88 beats and goes up to 200 or something like that, and it's just different songs that have that. I'll put a link in the chat, or I'm sorry, on the website. And if you don't see that, feel free to email me at Dave Gerhart at gmail.com, and I'll send that to you. I don't know of a YouTube playlist. I know there's a Spotify playlist, and if you just do Spotify free, but I'll look. There may be a YouTube playlist, and I'll link to that. All right, let's get to the exercises. So for the mirrored exercises, so when I say mirrored, we're talking about playing at the exact same time, okay? And what we're going to do, the reason that I do this mirrored exercise is I want to train my hands to come back to the same spot. A lot of people use mirrored exercises so that you cut down on the amount of time that you're practicing, because if you are playing the same thing with both hands, then you're cutting your practice time in half, obviously. So I use mirrored exercise to be a guide, okay? So if we just take that first line, and the R/L just means that I'm playing my right and left hand together at the same time, okay? A very common, popular exercise that we teach in the marching activity, and I like to use in exercises in the classroom, is this 8 on a hand. So basically I'm going to play 8 eighth notes as a mirror. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now at this point my left hand stays and my right hand plays. And what that allows me to do is use my left hand as the guide, and is that stick coming up to that same spot? Is it going past and then coming back? It should stop and start and stop at the same point as my left hand, okay? And then I do the mirrored again, and 3, 3, and 4, and then I do the left hand, and 2, and 3, and 4, and. So let's do this together, okay? So we'll do it nice and slow. I'm not going to put on a metronome because it'll be difficult to play live on a metronome, but we'll just do it nice and slow. Like, here's the 8th note. Ready, and go, and 1, and 2, and 3, and look at your grip. And now right hand, and making sure that the tips, 3, are matching. 4, together, 1, and are mirrored. 3, and now the left hand, 1, and I'm looking at my left hand. Is the tip coming back together? 1 and 2. I may mess up because I'm talking. I apologize in advance if I do, but you get the idea. And then I'm just repeating this, okay? And 4, and together, and 2, and am I using my wrist? I'm not using arm, it's all wrist. What do my elbows look like? Are your shoulders down? That's a big thing, and I bet you a lot of you guys are also coming up with your shoulders, so just make sure your shoulders stay down, okay? A lot of times when I'm doing this, I will also just say reset, and what reset means is take a step back from the pad, put your arms down at your side. When your arms are down at your side, it's really hard to have your elbows up, or sorry, your shoulders up, okay? So just think, arms down, reset, bring your sticks up, step up to the pad. Now, one thing I didn't mention, and it's hard to capture on the video right now, is my stance. I'm not standing with my heels together. I'm standing about the width of my body apart. One foot is just a little bit in front of the other. It doesn't really matter as long as you're not locking your legs. There's no, okay, it's got to be your left foot in front. It doesn't matter, just being comfortable, okay? So generally, if you stand your feet at the same, this isn't marching band, we don't have to be exactly the same. If you stand one in front of the other, you can shift your weight a little bit and get a little bit of control of your body. But just make sure that your feet are about the width of your body apart, and that you're not locking your knees, okay? So let's go on and look at B, and I'm trying to, let me do it from the side so you can see it, okay? So B is just doing 4 togethers and then 4 apart. Okay, so here we go. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and now the left hand. 3 and 4. Remember keeping those thumbs on the stick. Are you still touching the circle and making sure that you are having a good fulcrum? Are you using those wrists? You're not arm, it's all wrist. 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and okay. And then going on, C obviously just goes 2 together and then 2 separate. 1 and 1. Okay, and then the last one is 1 and 1. So 1 together, 1 apart. And this is hard. This is probably the hardest one because you have to think about what you're doing, right? Okay, so I practice each one of those. You can call out, okay, we're going to do A, we're going to do B, you know, repeat them as many times until everyone looks good. And then once you get them all on the right page, so then we go A through D. So let's try that. So we're going to do, for now, we're not going to do any repeats. You can decide to do repeats when you do this, but we're just going to go A, B, C, D without repeats and straight through. Okay, ready? And go. And 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now together 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Left hand 1 and 2 and 3 and now going on to B 1 and 2 and 1 and, or 4 and 1 and 2. Left hand 3 and going on to C 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and last one 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and great. Looks good. So like I said, C and D are obviously harder than A, so build into that. But that's a good way to make sure that you're doing that. So define the heights, define what your full stroke's going to be. If you're going to be 8 inches, then do the whole exercise at 8 inches. And make sure that everyone is really using their wrist, and then all those little checkpoints, the grip, the thumb, making sure that your thumbs aren't turning white, your elbows, your shoulders, how far apart, and then that you're using your wrists, okay? Great. Let me see if there's any questions. I think we're good. Oh, Elisa is finding some. It's Dr. Dave Gerhart at Gmail, so you can change that or delete that one, Lisa, please. So it's Dr. Dave Gerhart at gmail.com. And would you be willing to share this document with us? It is in, oh, yes. It it is not in the webinar, so I will definitely share it with you. I will put it on the website on percussioneducation.com. And if it's not, if there's any problems, you can always email me and I'll be glad to share the PDF with you. All right, so we're going to do the bottom of it just real quick. So this is just an exercise 876. There are many exercises called 876. This is just doing that same thing, but instead of doing a lot of mirror, we're just doing one. So in this case, we're doing 8 eighth notes on the right, 8 eighth notes on the left, 7 on the right, 7 on the left. So it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And I'm making sure that the stick comes up to that. Now 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6. You get the idea. So it goes down to 2s, and then it comes back up to 8s. Now, for younger students, I wouldn't show them this page because then you're going to start getting all these questions. What's 7/8? What's 5/8? What's 3/8? Just teach it by rote. You can definitely just do 8/7/6. The students will know, and you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the reason I'm doing the mirrored part at the beginning of this is to make sure that I'm using my other hand as my guidepost, that the stick is, it's not going past it, it's coming right back up to it. Okay, so questions, make sure you ask them, but let's keep going. Do you have a pulse? Do you change the pulse for 8/7/6? Sarah asks. No, I keep it nice and straight. 8th notes are all equal. The only reason I wrote it out like that is just because it's easier to read it in notation, but the 8th notes are constant throughout. And once you get your students up to this, do it, put it on all 8th notes, your metronome click, and then start to put it on quarter note, so that when they get to the odd bars, they play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And guess what? They'll be working, learning how to play with a metronome when it's not always on every beat. Awesome. So that is the first exercises with the full strokes. Okay. The other exercise, and this is actually in here, and I can let me put this on the publish this. So this next one that we're going to talk about, I just put the offer up for it and you can download it, is the snare drum stroke types. Say that 5 times fast. Snare drum stroke types. And this is just an exercise where, very similar to what we talked about last week, just making sure that you've got your full strokes and your downstrokes and your upstrokes. And I'm going to show you why this is important. So if we were to take line A, which you guys can see there, we've got a full stroke, rest, full stroke, rest, full stroke, rest, full stroke, rest. And you guys can write these out on the board. You don't need to have, in the beginning, I like to do with a lot of space in between, so the students can really make sure that they're matching everything, that their sticks are coming up to the right point, that their grip's good and all that. But obviously you could do this with quarter notes. You could do this with 8th notes. Just depends on the level of your students, okay? Now, if we look at letter B, let me just blow it up so you guys can see this a little better. So letter B, we've got down and up strokes. And to review from last week, so a full stroke is starting and stopping in the same spot. A downstroke is starting in the up position, like let's for now say 8 inches above the pad, and then stopping and not rebounding. So I'm starting high and going low. That's a downstroke. So 8 inches, stopping at about 1 inch after I hit the pad. So for this exercise, I've got down, down. This is letter B, and then up, up. And when I come to up, a lot of students like to do this, like they're really pulling it up or coming off. So all I'm trying to come back is to where I started. Down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up. And I'll let you guys play around with these exercises this week, and we can do a play along with these next week. Here's a good exercise, letter C, where we got full, full, down, down, up, up, full, full, down, down, up, up. And the cool thing about this is there are 3 stroke types. Let your students write out some exercises. Have them be interactive in this, Say, okay, you've got to be, rule number 1, we have to be able to play it. But if they start writing this out and coming up with some different things, you may find a really cool exercise that's going to work. Okay. So that's that. And you guys have the offer for that. So you can download that And we are cool with that. Now, why is this important? The stroke types are super important because of the rudiments. Why are rudiments important? Rudiments to a snare drum are like scales to another instrument, to a wind instrument, okay, to a string instrument. We can't play A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? And I don't have perfect pitch and I'm not a very good singer, but you get the idea, right? I can't play, so I can't work on fingerings and learning technique. So the way that we learn technique are by the rudiments, okay? And this rudiment chart is just from the Percussive Arts Society. It's our International Society for Percussion. It's pas.org. And if you just type in the Percussive Arts Rudiments PDF, you can download this PDF. I'll also link it on the website. But there are 40 international drum rudiments, okay? This is not the only rudiments. This is what PAS has codified as the rudiments that we learn, okay? There are a lot more of what we call hybrid rudiments that are the drum corps are playing, which are just combinations of these. But there are basically 4 types of rudiments, whether you have a roll rudiment, a diddle rudiment, a flam rudiment, or a drag rudiment. And what we're going to start with today are what we call the diddle rudiments. And if you see that, the diddle rudiments are paradiddles. And the reason we call what a diddle is 2 strokes with the same hand before we play the next hand, okay? So most, if not all, of these rudiments, the way that you say it is the way that you play it, okay? So when I'm playing this paradiddle, which is the first one we're going to start with, the way that I say it is paradiddle, okay? So diddle meaning 2 strokes with the same hand. So I'm going to start this on my right hand. It'll be right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Now, I always start with paradiddles. I think it's the easiest rudiment to start with. Rolls always are the last thing, and we will talk in future episodes about the way that I teach all the rudiments. But I always start with paradiddles because they are just using individual upstrokes and downstrokes. So the way that I start off with a paradiddle is I will tell the students the sticking: right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left, or paradiddle, paradiddle, okay? And I don't worry about the accent. So a traditional paradiddle has an accent on the first note. I just want them to get their hands moving. So at that full stroke height, at about 6 to 8 inches above the pad, I'm just going to play right, left, right, right, left, right, left, left. Once they get the sticking, then I really try to get them to say paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. Okay. Now, I said that the stroke types are super important. Here's why. All of the rudiments that we play are made up of those 3 stroke types: full stroke, downstroke, and upstroke. So if I'm playing a paradiddle, after I've learned what the sticking is, then I start to incorporate full strokes, upstrokes, and downstrokes. So check it out. So when I start, I'm going to do a downstroke, upstroke, full stroke, full stroke. Now, some people call this small full stroke a tap stroke. If you want to do that, that's fine. I think it's just a small full stroke, but you can do whatever however you want to teach it is totally fine. And then conversely, I'm going to go downstroke, upstroke, full stroke, full stroke. So a paradiddle uses those 3 strokes, right? Downstroke, upstroke, full stroke, downstroke, upstroke, full stroke, full stroke. And another way to think of it is it's duff, just like the beer on The Simpsons, right? Downstroke, upstroke, full stroke, downstroke, upstroke, or D, U, F, F, D, U, F, F. And as I start to speed them up, you'll see that I'm always preparing that upstroke, okay? And conversely, if we keep going with this principle, if I do a double paradiddle, it's going to be a full stroke, downstroke, upstroke, full stroke, par, di, do, di, do. So we say for a double paradiddle, it's just double paradiddle. Da, bo, par, di, do, da, bo, par, di, do. Double paradiddle, double paradiddle, double paradiddle, so on and so forth. And we'll really get into this next week. I'll write out some exercises where we can start to do some play alongs with the rudiments as well. And then the same thing for triple paradiddle. Now, a triple paradiddle has 8 notes, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, right, or left, right, left, right, left, right, left, left. Because there's only 6 syllables in triple paradiddle, what we generally say, we add it's triple paradiddle. So it's a triple paradiddle, it's a triple paradiddle, it's a triple paradiddle, it's a triple paradiddle. And what I will generally do is you can pass out the rudiment chart, but I also have each student write out the 8th notes and then the stickings and then the upstrokes and downstrokes, so that you're reinforcing this downstroke upstroke technique. Because if they can really get this downstroke, it will really help them gain the speed. Okay, so that's the reason that full strokes, upstrokes, and downstrokes are important. What I would like you to check out for this week is so you're going to download, if you don't already have it, your Percussive Arts Society International Drum Rudiments, the 40 rudiments. You've got the stroke types, and you've got the mirrored exercises. So check out the mirrored exercises. That will really, the reason I start with full strokes first is it really gets their wrist moving, and I can make sure that everything is good. Once they've got a good full stroke, then I start to really incorporate the downstrokes and upstrokes. But until then, I just make sure that the full stroke is good. So check that out, make sure that that's happening, ask any questions. You've got the full stroke, upstroke, downstroke, and then the rudiments. Next week, we will talk about paradiddles, and I will give you some exercises on paradiddles, and we'll talk about different ways that we incorporate them into our technique. Let's see. We've got a couple, we're a little bit over, but if you've got any questions, let's do that. Hope this has been super helpful. You know, I really just want to help non-percussionist educators get good at holding sticks and teaching the sticks. Because the more, you know, the more that we can really incorporate these things and show the students, I think the easier it will be for them to really get into doing good roles and helping your ensemble sound better. So I'm really just here to help out. All right, so we've got some questions. So thank you, Sarah. As a person who is percussively challenged, this is exactly what I need. Well, thank you, I appreciate that. I am challenged in playing string instruments, and my kids are playing string instruments right now. So even though I did my undergrad in music ed, I totally get it. So I think the problem with percussion is there's so many instruments. Excuse me. There's so many instruments that we have to learn. If we really start with snare drum, getting a good grip going, and then start incorporating reading from the beginning, I think it will really help improve our students. I think a lot of times, you know, they get in the back of the classroom and it's sit down, shut up, don't make any noises, and then we worry about the band, and then, okay, how come, Johnny, you're not playing in time, or you're not? So if we can take some time out of the class and work with them and get their sticks going at a good tempo, I'm sorry, get their wrists going and making sure that everything's looking good. And then also, very important, make sure that they're starting to read. You really have to get them reading so that they are not falling behind as a musician. All right. So would an upstroke be the same as a rebound stroke? Yeah, I'm not sure. And the reason I say that is I think there's just a lot of different terminologies out there. I think a full stroke would be a rebound stroke because you're coming and rebounding up off of the pad. Uh, a rebound stroke starting low and coming up wouldn't make as much sense to me. So I would think a rebound stroke would be the full stroke, and then a downstroke is not having any uh, rebound from it, and then uh, from the pad, and then upstroke is hitting and coming back up. So that's why I say, sorry, I'm not really clear about that. I don't know if I would call it a rebound stroke. I would call the full stroke a rebound stroke because I'm really doing that. Mark, can you do a quick review of how you teach grip? It is all in episode 1. I will be glad to stay on a couple minutes and show you, but the episode 1 video has all of that, and it's on YouTube. It's also on Elisa's website, and Elisa will throw up the link to our webinar from last week, and you can check it out from there. Sherry from Texas, welcome. I teach K-5 general music. Do you have a good resource for online learning for younger beginners that I could share with my students? All of my classes are online because our schools are closed indefinitely right now. If you go onto YouTube, type in my name, Percussion Education, there is a playlist, and I think Sarah shared it last week, and she can probably find it again for us here. There's a playlist that I have about 28 different videos that goes over all of the basic snare drum technique, how to set up a snare drum, how to do the full stroke, upstroke, different stroke types, and then going into paradiddles and some math things and some composing. So there are 28 videos on YouTube. The other thing that I would definitely check out is vicfirth.com, their Percussion 101 series. They have a ton of resources on there. Elisa is popping in some YouTube playlists. Thank you very much. So vicfirth.com, Percussion 101. They've got a ton of resources on there. They also have, I believe it's John Wooten that does all of their rudiments, and he starts off and plays all the rudiments with a click and shows all the rudiments, so that is super helpful as well. Also, my website, you can go on there. Percussioneducation.com has a lot of videos on there as well. All right, Doug says, with beginners, how do you balance your time between battery and keyboard instruments? It's difficult, but what I try and do is at the beginning, I want to really, like the first couple weeks, really make sure that their hands are in good shape. And then I start to introduce, when you're doing long tones and you're doing scales with your beginners, once you start doing scales and learning to read music, that's when I start to put in the mallet reading. And what I would really suggest is that, try not to stereotype, girls don't just play mallets and boys don't just play drums. Make them rotate, every set a timer and just make sure that you're clicking through and making sure that they're rotating. With pads, you can have, if you've got 6 people in your classroom, you may not want 6 snare drums set up. You probably definitely don't want 6 snare drums set up. Set up some pads, maybe have 1 snare drum, have 2 or 3 pads, and have some mallet instruments that they can play on. And they just rotate through and make sure that they are getting enough time. Thank you, Elisa. So we've got some links in there. I appreciate that. Thanks, Marcia. I appreciate you watching. Fight on. All right, Kenneth asks, Dave, as far as stroke types, how do you teach the downstroke so that it doesn't create a harsh tone? Also, is the buzz stroke the same as a bounce stroke? So let me take the first part of that, Kenneth. Trying to teach them not to go harsh into it. It's not about speed. I think a lot of students really think that an accent is about hitting it harder. An accent is just about the height. So if I want an accent is going to start from here and everything else is going to be lower. So when you're teaching these different stroke types, don't think of them as speed. I'm not going fast in to get a downstroke. I'm just stopping my hand so that the stick doesn't come back up. I'm gonna try and do it with my, when I do a full stroke, with my right hand, I let the stick come up, and it's that bounce stroke, like if I'm bouncing a basketball. Okay, I don't do this when I bounce a basketball. I have it come up, right? So it's the same thing there. I let the stick come up. I allow the stick to come up, right? If I'm doing a downstroke, the only thing I'm changing is I'm just not letting the stick rebound. I'm just stopping, and I'm not going faster. That's a good key. Don't go faster. I'm just not letting the stick come up. Okay. Same thing with an accent. A lot of students do this, where they're like killing it on an accent. An accent just is a higher stroke. Okay. And the sooner you can really teach that. So if I want an accent, I'm not going to play faster. I'm going to play higher. And if I'm playing on a snare drum, that's going to be plenty loud enough. Now I'm playing on a silent stroke practice pad, so it's not maybe as obvious that that's an accent, but I think you can hear that. And so that what I'm really teaching my students is, if I'm going to play an accent and note, maybe it's going to be 10 inches from the pad, and everything else is going to be 6 inches from the pad. But I'm not changing the speed. The accent is about height, not speed. So the sooner that you can incorporate that, teach that, that would be helpful. All right, Kenneth goes on. Also, is the buzz stroke the same as a bounce stroke? The buzz stroke is the same as a bounce stroke. It is going to be a bounce stroke means that the stick is bouncing maybe 2, 3, 4 times. A buzz stroke is still bouncing, but you're not counting how many bounces there are. So we will definitely talk about that, because that's one of the hardest things to teach. It's also one of the hardest things to do. What do you think of people who define stroke types as single, double, and multiple bounce? That's perfectly acceptable, because what we're doing now is all the single strokes. We're not talking about bounce strokes. And generally, when I talk about double strokes, when I start to incorporate the roll, the first thing we do is a double bounce. So 1 hand motion, 2 bounces, and then up. Okay, so that's a double stroke. And then a multiple bounce is a concert style roll, so like a buzz stroke or a multiple bounce. Those are used interchangeably. Okay, and generally I teach a double stroke because it's easier to start the students working on, for me, get those 2 bounces. And a double stroke roll is primarily used in marching music, and a multiple bounce roll is primarily used in concert play. So we will definitely talk about that. Also, do you teach the molar stroke? No, I do not teach the molar stroke. I incorporate some techniques from the molar stroke, but in the beginning level, maybe not even until college, I don't teach the molar stroke. There are some techniques that we will talk about, especially when I'm starting to do some accents, where I will do a wrist lift. So very similar to the molar stroke, but not exactly the molar stroke. So that's that. I think, Kenneth, thank you. A lot of people teach velocity matters more than stick height. I think it just depends on the application. In the beginning classroom, in a concert band setting, velocity is not where you want to get your accents from, in my opinion. Okay. When you're outside and you're marching on a drum with a Kevlar head, yes, you need velocity to get more accent out of it. But in a beginning band classroom or a middle school classroom, it's all about the height for the accent, in my opinion. There's different opinions out there, and that's great. This is how I teach it. Jim Chapin talks about rolling the forearms where the back of the hand isn't visible. Do you think that applies to all percussion techniques? I am not a follower. I mean, I know Jim Chapin, but I'm not a follower. I don't know the rolling the forearms, so I'm going to look that up this week, and I will answer that question next week. So make sure you log on. Jim Chapin, rolling the forearms. So I will check that out. I'm not sure. I think that is it for the questions. Let me just double check. think I've got all the questions. We went a little bit over. Thank you, Elisa, for the extra time. Really appreciate all of you being here. I know it's a tough time right now. Use your time wisely. Do some practicing. Learn a new instrument. If snare drum's not your instrument, this is the perfect time to do that. I started learning bass guitar. You can see the bass guitar in the background. So it is really hard and it hurts my fingers, but it's now, now is a great time to do that. I've also been doing a lot of the Mo Willems lunch doodles. I've got a first grader and a third grader, so it's really fun. So do that. Have some time with your family. Spend this time learning something new and invite some people to come next week. I want to get a bunch of people, some non-percussionist educators, have them watch episode 1 and 2 so they'll be caught up. And I appreciate you all being here. Have a great weekend. Have a great week. Stay safe. And we'll talk to you next time. Thanks a lot.